Okay, and we are live. Okay, so we can commence. Let me share the screen now. Need to mute this. Okay, can anyone confirm audio and video? All good?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah,
Yes, good.
thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Right. So today is chapter 9, Rajaguhya Yoga, the most confidential knowledge. Devotee once asked Srila Prabhupada if there's a one chapter that I must read, which one should it be? And Prabhupada's answer was that you should read, if at all, only one chapter that you can read. It should be this chapter, the ninth chapter. So it's a very important chapter, obviously, right? So what is confidential knowledge? When one understands the knowledge, what is their conduct? When they figure out how to reach Krishna, right? So these are the aspects that we would be considering today, we'll be examining today. Okay, but first, we pay our obeisance to Sri Sri Radha Govinda, the temple deities of ISKCON Mangaluru, and our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Quick recap of what we examined yesterday. Yesterday's class was chapter 8, right? 8 questions were asked by Arjuna in the first two verses. Krishna answers 7 of those questions in the next two verses. So till about fourth verse, almost all of Arjuna's questions except the last one were answered, right? And the last question by Arjuna was how to remember Krishna at the time of death, right? And Krishna spends the rest of the chapter explaining how to remember Krishna by Yoga Mishra Bhakti and also by pure Bhakti. And we also saw the differences between material world and the spiritual world, and that supremacy of pure Bhakti in attaining Krishna, right? So that was yesterday's chapter. And today's overview, it's a shortest chapter. It's 34 verses only, but I've divided it into three headings. But I hope to keep time. It's a little difficult. Today is going to be again more philosophy, but probably from tomorrow I should be able to keep sufficient punctuality, right? So the first overview, the first heading would be Bhagavat Aishwarya Jnana, which is actually the Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam. What is the king of knowledge and what is the most confidentiality about it? And then what are the ways to approach Krishna and the sweetness of exclusive devotion? Okay, so let's commence with 9.1.
ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय श्रीभगवानुवाच इदं तु ते गुह्यतमं प्रवक्ष्यामि अनुसूयवे ज्ञानं विज्ञानसहितं यद्ज्ञात्वा मोक्ष्यसे शुभात्. हरे कृष्ण.
The Supreme Lord said, My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most secret wisdom, knowing which you shall be relieved of all miseries of material existence. Idam tu, right? These two words means I'm going to give it to you, right? And anusyave means not envious. So Arjuna is never envious of Krishna, right? So why did Krishna give the message of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna and not anyone else? The answer is right here. This is the precise answer, actually, because Arjuna is never envious of Krishna. Krishna himself says that. Why am I telling you all this? Is because you are never envious of me. So what is envy? Quickly, can you post in the chat box? What is envy? ENVY. Well, what is your understanding of envy? Jealous. That's a synonym. I'm asking for the meaning. Jealousy is yes, broadly, but then what is jealousy? Okay. To not be happy other when, oh yes, that's more closer to it. Yes. Feeling bad that others cannot. Yes. Feeling desire to have what others have and feeling bad. Arjun Prabhu has hit it on the head, nail on the head. Okay, so all right, so let's see how the scriptures answer it. Srimad Bhagavatam itself actually explains this, and I got this from Prema Mataji's class. Um, Envy is something like this, right? I like what you're having, right? But I don't like the fact that you are the one who's having it. So that is envy, right? So I like what you're having, but then I don't like the fact that you are having it. I must be the one who should be having it, right? So that is envy and jealousy, right? So knowing Krishna is a privilege, right? We all try to find worth in our lives. We want to be famous, to be celebrated, wants to be liked. Everyone wants to be liked, right? There is so much attachment. Now let's take a detached person. If you just flip the coin, you can say that the detached person is attached to his detachment, right? So therefore, no one is really free, right? Therefore, knowledge about Krishna is the only way which can give us complete freedom from material existence. One may say, I'm very pious, I don't envy or dislike anything, I'm very patient. Well, the reality of the fact is that I am attached to not being envious or not or disliking, right? So only the knowledge about Krishna would give us the relief that we so desperately require to go back, right? So one advances by listening about Krishna. One becomes free from the miseries of life when it is heard from a proper source. If I don't hear about Krishna from a proper source, then it is something like Shamshan Vairagya. You know what Shamshan Vairagya is? Let's assume someone has expired, right? Then the relatives who have now come to cremate or bury him, they go to the Shamshan Ghat, which is the graveyard, right? So they go to the cremation ground, and then all of a sudden, they turn to very philosophical, right? And then they act all renounced. They start speaking with each other. They say like there's nothing in this world, and this is the reality, right? Then they come home, and for some time they continue to remain philosophical. Then after some time, they start feeling hungry, right? And then it's back to the pavilion. This sort of vairagya is what is called as Shamshan Vairagya. Krishna consciousness does not give that sort of vairagya. Krishna consciousness gives attachment to Krishna. Okay. So now my question to you, right? What is so secret about knowledge of Krishna? My understanding is that a secret must be kept well hidden, right? It has to be hidden. That is a secret, like obviously. Otherwise, it's not called a secret. The very definition is that it must be kept hidden, right? Now, the Bhagavad Gita is an open book. It is available everywhere. Srila Prabhupada has dedicated his life to spreading the message. So where is the secret? What is the secret? Right here, nothing is hidden in that sense, right? Can anyone answer what is the secret that Krishna is going to refer to? In the chat box, if you could just quickly put what is the reason that that this chapter is called most confidential information. Being able to grasp that which is in front of you. Rajiv Prabhu says that. Why is this noise here? Take care of your mics. Okay.
It should be told to only a pure devotee.
Yes, thank you, Mataji.
Who is really interested in that.
What is the real knowledge, Prabhuji? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Hare Krishna, Vashnivasam Prabhu. We are going to examine that. That is the purpose of the chapter, isn't it? Okay, so I'm going to mute all of you because there's some interference in between. Co-hosts can, of course, unmute themselves, right? Okay. Right. So broadly, what is the answer that I'm getting? Feeling that I'm not like other. Oh, sorry. This is okay. So explanation of transcendental knowledge, says Vani Mataji. So Savai Mataji says, secret is knowledge that you should be within me. Oh, yeah, that's more like it. To dispel Maya, says Nandu. That of finding absolution.
Going back to his abode, that is the secret knowledge.
Thank you, Slochana Mataji. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Right, let's go on and examine what this is. Okay, so 9.2. Tanushri Mataji, are you able to unmute? Yes.
Okay. Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratakya Bhagamang Dharmyam Shushukham Kartum Abbayam. Hare
This
Krishna.
knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge. And because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed. There you go. Right? Krishna says this is the king of education. Right? With that one line, he implies that all the education that we have had in the first part of our lives is useless tinsel. Right? But then looking on the bright side, if anyone were to ask you today that you have been attending a course on Bhagavad Gita for what? This is the 9th day. We are halfway through, by the way. What is the benefit of reading the Bhagavad Gita? Right? So you can at least tell them that you have learned the knowledge, which is the king of education, right? But why is this the king of education? And why is it that what we have studied is not the king of education, right? This is the king of education because it shows the path to Krishna, right? So what we spend in our initial years, the first 25 years at least, is just trying to learn and become proficient in a skill, right? We should understand that knowing a skill is not education. Education is much more broad based, right? The skill that we learned merely helps us to keep the body and soul together by making money, right? It does not lead to the growth of a person spiritually. That is the difference between Vidya and Avidya, right? So what is Vidya? Vidya is all that knowledge which leads to Krishna, right? What is Avidya? Avidya is everything else. That is every other knowledge which does not lead to Krishna, right? Now let's proceed to the next part. What is the next part? Krishna says this is the most secret of all secrets. As I said in the previous slide, what is the secret? There is nothing hidden, right? This is an open book after all, right? So the secret is this. There are 3 levels of secrets in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay. So first is Guhyam, secret. That you are not the body, but the soul, right? We don't get that knowledge from anywhere else. That is level 1, right? Then you have Guhyataram. That is the second level of secret, that the soul is part and parcel of Krishna. Okay. So that's the second level. Is to go back to Krishna, that you have to do devotional service to Krishna. So there are 3 secrets. First is Guhyam, Guhyataram, and Guhya, right? So these are the 3 levels of secrets in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Now, first is who am I, right? So that is Guhyam. That is this knowledge that I'm not the body, I'm the soul. Now, the second one, as I mentioned, was Guhyataram. That is the soul is part and parcel of Krishna. That is, where am I coming from? Okay. And the third is, where do I have to go? Right? That is Guhya, to go back to Krishna. And how do you go back to Krishna? By rendering devotional service. Okay. So these are the 3 levels of secret that Bhagavad Gita deals with. Okay. The 3 levels, as I mentioned, where I'll repeat it again: Guhyam, Guhyataram, and Guhya. So for those who are taking notes. Okay. So one can read the Bhagavad Gita every day for the rest of your lives. But if you don't hear it from a spiritual guru, you will not understand it. And these 3 secrets will never be revealed, right? See, speaking armchair philosophy does not mean that you've understood the Bhagavad Gita, right? These are the 3 things that you must implement, put it into practice, right? Let's see the phrase further, right? It says it is the purest knowledge because, I mean, it's underlined also, right? Krishna consciousness makes us pure, right? We feel the purity in the heart because we understand that Krishna is protecting us. Why is there so much impurity? Because we are governed by the modes of material nature. But not just that, we are impure because we have the desire to enjoy, right? We do impure things because there is some ulterior motive behind it, right? Let's move on. The point is, it gives direct perception of the self through realization. One who is chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra sincerely and doing devotional service can begin to understand that he is actually not the body. It doesn't stay theory anymore, right? When you implement it, when you start doing these 2 things, you start to understand it practically, right? Now, the next part of the sloka is that it is everlasting and it is joyfully performed. Krishna consciousness is very simple, right? Worship Krishna, sacrifice, work for Krishna, chant, dance, and eat prasadam, right? We do it every single day, and it is everlasting. It purifies. So Srila Prabhupada says that there are 4 levels of sin, right? He also says that sinful reactions are not easy to understand, right? So what are those 4 natures, 4 kinds, 4 levels of sin? The first one is prarabdha. Prarabdha is suffering which is already fructified, That is, someone is already suffering for something they have already done, right? So For example, when somebody is not born in an affluent family, right? So the reactions are immediate. Now, the second level is Phalanmukha. Phalanmukha is like something which is just waiting to take effect. Okay, it will take effect very fast. In fact, all good things, and I mean everything is good in life, but then suddenly something happens and everything collapses, right? So that is called Phalanmukha. The third kind of sins are Kuta. Kuta is the third level. Okay, Kuta is where reactions are going to fructify later, like in old age or in the next life. Okay, and the last level, last kind of sin is Bija. Bija, that is reactions which are still in the seed-like form, and it will affect you after many, many births, right? So these are the four kinds of sins that a person has to suffer. But the point is this: Krishna consciousness and chanting of the Mahamantra clears all four of them, right? It clears the account entirely. So all the four levels are wiped out. A couple of classes before, I had explained about the levels of devotion, right? We saw about 9 levels of devotion, starting from Shraddha, faith, Sadhu Sangha, and leading to Bhava Bhakti, and eventually pure Bhakti, Prema for Krishna, right? So that was a rung, a ladder setup. That is, one level is higher than the other level, right? Now let us see the kinds of devotion. There are again 9 kinds of devotion. Right now, this is not a hierarchy, right? These are kinds. One is not higher over the other, right? So they're all equally placed. So what's the first one? The first one is Shravanam. Okay, Shravanam is hearing. Example is Parikshit Maharaj, right? He heard the Srimad Bhagavatam from Sukdev Goswami, right? Then we have Kirtanam. Kirtanam, example is Sukdev Goswami, right? Because he narrated the Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. Narada is another example. What is Kirtan? Kirtan is chanting about the holy names, forms, qualities, and transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Okay. And then we have Smaranam. Smaranam is remembering the Lord. Example, remembering the Lord all the time, right? We know what happened to Hiranyakasipu thereafter. Pada Sevanam. Pada Sevanam is serving the lotus feet of the Lord. Lakshmi is the best example for that. Then we have Archanam. Archanam is worshipping the Lord, obviously, right? Archanam is worshipping the Lord, and the example for Archanam is Maharaj Pratu, right? And then we have Vandanam, which is offering prayers to the Lord. Example is Aprura. And of course, Dasyam is becoming the servant of the Lord. Best example is Hanuman, right? And of course, then we have Sakyam, that is considering the Lord to be your best friend. Arjuna is the best example of that. And then we have Atma Nivedanam, which is complete surrender to the Lord. And the best example there is Bali Maharaj. So these are the 9 kinds of devotion, how a devotee expresses his devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is all from Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 5th chapter, verses 23 and 24, right? Right, let's proceed further. 9.3.
अश्रद्धाधानं पुरुष धर्मस्य परन्तप अप्राप्यमं निबद्धन्ते मृत्यु संसारवत्मिनि. Hare Krishna.
Very important verse. Those who are not faithful on the path of devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of foes, but return to birth and death in this material world. Shastras talk to us like this, right? They first tell us what to do, and then they tell us what not to do, right? This is a sloka of the second kind, because it's telling us what not to do. It says, do not lose faith on Krishna. We saw also in the 4th chapter, 40th verse, Samsai Atma Vinasyati, right? A doubting soul will have hardships. Samsai is doubting, right? And Vinasyati is they'll fall down, right? So hardships. Atma is, of course, the soul, right? So a doubting soul will have hardships. Samsai Atma Vinasyati, right? It will have to be born again and again until it gets faith. See, we have to understand something very basic. Why is Krishna different from all the other demigods? Why is he different from Shiva? Why is he different from Brahma? And why is he considered to be the highest, the Supreme Personality of Godhead? All the other gods can give you what you want materially, right? But then the dharma of the soul is to go back to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And who can grant you that? Only Krishna can grant you that. That is something that it's like a prison, right? We are in this prison. I mentioned this yesterday when we are in the Goloka chart. You go up or you go down, right? Now, all the good deeds that you do day after day, life after life, it only takes you above, right? Those 7 lokas, your highest that you can reach is Brahma Loka, right? But this Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi is there in all the 15 lokas, right? Now, the point is you have to break that jail, right? You have to get out of that jail, right? Now, all these gods operate, demigods operate within this jail, right? They give you material benefits. So if you're seeking material benefit, by all means, you can follow demigods, you can follow gods. Because they assure you that you will be given material benefits. But if you want to satisfy the purpose of the soul, then there is only one person who can grant you that. And that is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, right? And that is why that Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which then is like the rope that takes you to Golaka Vrindavan. We saw all this in yesterday's chapter, so just rehashing it quickly. So which is why in 9.3 says, those who are not faithful on the path of devotional service cannot attain me. So if you're just looking for material benefits, the world is your oyster, right? It is, the problem is it's the world still, right? So you have to transgress the world. You have to go beyond the world. So what is required? Faith is what is required. What is also required? Devotional service. And what happens if you don't have both? Samsaya Atma Vinasyati. A doubting soul will have hardships, right? So one can have questions that is different. See, when Bhagavad Gita speaks of having faith, it does not mean you cannot have doubts, right? Please understand the distinction between having doubts and losing faith, right? So when you have doubts, you go ask your spiritual master. Quick question: how do you ask your spiritual master? What is that one word that I'm expecting? What's that one word that Bhagavad Gita uses? How must you make your inquiries? I'm not getting an
Humility.
answer. Submissively, very nice. Submissively. That is how you're supposed to make your
Humility, Prabhu.
questions. And your spiritual master will clarify it happily, right? So you have to ask paripe prashneya submissively, right? That's a little difference between humility and submissively, Mataji. Okay, but anyway, continuing. So how do you ask your spiritual master these doubts? You ask him submissively, right? And then he will clarify it happily. But doubt, that is something you have to overcome with faith by yourself. So the point is that there is a distinction between faith and doubt. Doubt can be clarified from your spiritual master, but you should not lose faith. That is the important thing, right? We have to realize that it is God who is saying this, who is speaking this. Bhagavan Shri Krishna is speaking this, right? That's why Veda Vyasa says Bhagavan Vacha. He doesn't say Vasudeva Vacha, or he doesn't say Krishna Vacha. He says Shri Bhagavan Vacha, right? So you remember in the earlier classes, I think chapter 3, we saw the qualities of Bhagavan, those 6 opulences, right? So that is the personality who is talking to us, right? So if you're going to doubt that, then what else would you believe? Who else would you believe it from, right? So these are aspects that you will have to consider. Okay, so let's proceed further. These are a set of 3 verses. So 9.4, 9.5, and 9.6. So the next 3 verses, that is these 3 verses, would seem to be a little difficult to understand. So let me read them first, right? So 9.4. By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. And yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, still myself is the very source of creation. 9.6. As the mighty wind blowing everywhere always rests in ethereal space, know that in the same manner all beings rest in me. Now, superficially, if you read these 3 verses, it would appear to be contradictory, right? For that matter, if you try to understand Krishna superficially, you will find a lot of contradictions, right? But then we must be aware of what it is you are dealing with, right? We are trying to understand God. Nobody said it would be easy. It's not going to be a simple exercise, right? It is easy, but it's not simple in that sense, right? So Krishna is full of apparent contradictions. Apparent means it seems to be there, but then when you examine it more deeply, there's a deeper latent meaning, right? So but just be reassured that there is no contradiction if you go deeper, right? That is the inconceivable potency of Krishna, right? So what is 9.4? 9.4, Krishna says, by me, In my unmanifested form, the entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. So what does this mean? It means that Krishna has created the material world for us to live, but he is not here, right? He is the universal form. That is the Virat Rupa or the Vishwarupa, right? For example, the eyes of Krishna represent the sun and the moon. All this I'm saying from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is there in Srimad Bhagavatam. Eyes of Krishna is compared to the sun and the moon. The trees represent the hairs on the body of Krishna. The mountains, boulders, they represent the bones of Krishna. Like this, all things are representing Krishna, right? Now, for people who are having a hard time understanding that Krishna is a person, he makes exceptions. That's why this comparison is sought to be made. You know, when you say Krishna is everything, this is a rather restrictive definition, right? But then the point is this: Krishna wants himself to be available for everyone. So even if you consider Krishna as impersonal, Krishna is trying to tell you that even if you consider me impersonal, I am still in these forms, right? So he's trying to make you love him, right? So that's why I said yesterday, right? Bhagavad Gita is a love letter, right? To the devotees from Krishna, right? He creates the entire universe, but he is not in this universe. As we saw yesterday in the Goloka chart, he resides everywhere, right? So that is 9.4. Now, what is 9.5? And yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, still myself is the very source of creation. We are in the 9th chapter, 7th chapter. There was a verse about necklace, right? The pearl necklace. I gave the analogy of 7th verse, I believe it was. So where Krishna says, no truth is superior to me, right? So everything rests upon Krishna as pearls strung on a thread, right? So there Krishna says everything rests upon me. If you examine 7.7, I mean, subject to correction, I think it's 7.7. Krishna says there that he is like the strand of pearls, right? And he says everything rests upon him, right? But then here Krishna is saying that all and yet everything that is created does not rest in me, right? So here you see a contradiction, because Krishna is saying that things don't rest in me. So what does it mean? 9.6 is the answer. As the mighty wind blowing everywhere always rests in the ethereal space, know that in the same manner all beings rest in me. So you see how 7.7 is linked with 9.6. 7.7 Krishna says all things rest in him, right? 9.6 also Krishna is saying that all things are resting in him. But then 9.5 he creates an apparent contradiction, right? He says, because he says in the first line that and yet everything that is created does not rest in me. So how do you balance out this seemingly contradictory statements, right? Now that is the hint is there in 9.6. As the mighty wind blowing everywhere always rests in ethereal space. Now in the sky, when the wind is blowing from one place to another in a very high speed, but actually the wind is under the blue sky, right? It's not going beyond the blue sky. You follow the analogy, right? It's a very nice analogy. It rests under the realm of the blue sky. It's not the atmosphere doesn't go beyond the stratosphere, is it? I hope I'm able to convey what I'm trying to. The wind that blows all over the earth, right? It doesn't go into space, right? It is still under the blue sky. That's the analogy that Krishna is giving. Like that, we are all resting in Krishna, even though we are changing bodies. So this is called Achinta Beda Beda Tattva, right? That is one, but still different, right? The meaning is one, but it can still be taken in different ways. He is simultaneously there, but also not there, right? Like for example, he is always at Goloka Vrindavan, right? He's simultaneously in his creation and also in Goloka Vrindavan. We are limited by the constraints of space and time. We have to understand this. We cannot be in two places at the same time, right? But because the theory of causation prevents it. There has to be a cause, and only then will there be an effect. But then we have to understand that Krishna is not subject to the laws of physics, right? Because Krishna is the one who created all this, right? So the creator is not bound by his own rules. Srila Prabhupada gives a wonderful example to illustrate this. He gives an example of a rich industrialist, right? He has companies in all the major cities, right? But he stays only at the headquarters. He need not be at every office, at every place, right? He has given a system, and there are people who implement that system. Now Krishna is present in the 8 elements we saw earlier, right? light of the sun and moon, taste of the water, life in all that lives. He's the creator, maintainer, annihilator, and so on, right? So, but in his in his personal form, Krishna can be found only at Goloka Vrindavan, and it is that form which came upon earth as Krishna, right? So the takeaway for these three verses is just this: at this level, at the beginner's course level, just understand that Krishna is not subject to his own creation, right? Okay, so that takes care of these three verses. Now, next verse is an important verse, 9.8. The whole cosmic order is under me. By my will, it is manifested again and again, and by my will, it is annihilated at the end, right? Now, it is a mistake to think that there is anything else which has caused creation, right? Krishna says in this verse explicitly that it is by his will that everything is manifested again and again, right? He just desires that it has to happen, and it happens. Now, we have the Big Bang theory, but the problem, and this is an idea, this is a scientifically admitted fact, we don't know what caused the Big Bang theory. In fact, we for about the few microseconds just before we start understanding what the Big Bang is, we don't know what caused the Big Bang and what happened in those initial moments of the Big Bang. And we don't also know what happened prior to the Big Bang. But then here it is, we have 5,500 years ago at least, right? Krishna is saying that it is by his will that everything is manifested. And then it is by his will that it will be annihilated at the end. But just think of this, the very concept that there is to be a beginning and that all this will end. What does it show? It shows that we had such tremendous knowledge, right? Way back in those days, those in that age. Just to imagine that that all this is going to be created and then destroyed again. This concept of destruction itself would be so alien to them unless they had that amount of wisdom, right? And then this is all reflected again back into Bhagavad Gita, right? So we have somewhere really lost the way sometime. Okay, what to do? So this is 9.9. Oh Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached, seated as though neutral. Now, this is another property of Krishna. He is not attached to his creations. If you don't bother about Krishna, Krishna is not bothered about you, right? But when you realize his existence and you start taking steps actively to go towards Krishna, then he approaches you in an entirely different manner, right? So let's see 9.10.
Maya dakshena prakrutihi suyate sacharacharam hetunanena kaunteya jagat viparivartate. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. The material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and unmoving beings. By its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. So what is happening under Krishna's direction? Prakriti is what it is, right? All the planets revolve under a specific scientific system, right? Birth and death on this planet follow a specific system. All this is governed by systems that Krishna has created, right? That is what Krishna is saying here. Importantly, it is that working. It is working as per the direction of Krishna. Now, Krishna has already provided the software, right? And there are engineers working to ensure that the system is functioning smoothly. Now, who are these engineers? They are the gods and the demigods, right? Now, why are we not able to understand this? Why is it that we can't believe this? Because Krishna says in the immediate next verse, he says Muda, right? What is Muda? Muda is foolishness. Let us examine that verse. Okay, so that's Krishna there. And yes, 9.11.
Abhajananti mang mudha manushing janumasritam parang bhavamajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram.
Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be. No, it's a self-explanatory verse, right? They do not know about my supreme dominion over all that be. This is what I meant when I said we are not able. Why it is that we are not able to understand Ma Muda, right? That's because we are fools. We have to understand this. We have to realize, unless we get that realization, this cycle of birth and death is going to go on. There is no doubt about that. Okay, be rest assured that is going to happen, right? So until we realize that, we still remain to be Ma Muda, right? Not just Muda, it's Maha Muda, right? So that's a bigger form. Okay, so 9.12.
मोघो समोघ कर्माणो मोघ ज्ञानाभिचेतसः राक्षसीमासुरीं चैव प्रकृतिं मोहिनीं श्रितः.
Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and aesthetic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. We today have so many godmen, right? So many godmen who are so popular. They have millions of followers. Now that you started to come to grips with the principles of the Bhagavad Gita. Now again, please go and watch their videos, right? What is it they are saying? It will be laughable actually. You are God, I am God, everybody is God. No, sir. Only Krishna is God. Krishna says so in the Bhagavad Gita. Who are you going to believe? They have no following of parampara. There is no pramana, nothing. It's just I speak as I think, right? Why are people attracted to such false godmen? Because as stated in this verse, people are bewildered. Such godmen are demonic. Okay, demons in the previous yugas would be easily identified, right? They have horns, right? But then in the Kali Yuga, they become much more subtle, right? They become subtler, right? The next group that is growing in leaps and bounds is atheism, right? It is just so stylish to say that I deny God, I deny the existence of God. There is no God. So what is the consequence of following that is what is explained here, right? Now just understand what is the consequence of these demonic and atheistic views. Their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. And that is massive, right? I mean, if this hope for liberation is what the dharma of the soul is, after all, right? And if that is defeated, then what remains? There's nothing. Therefore, it is that this comes out as a warning not to be demonic or atheistic, right? So that is 9.12. Okay, I think we have to have a short story here. 9.13.
महात्मानस्तु मं पार्थ दैवीं प्रकृतिमाश्रितः भजन्त्या अनन्यमनसः ज्ञात्या भूतादिम् अव्ययम्. हरे कृष्ण.
O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the supreme personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Okay, this is explained by way of a short story, right? So this is Madhavendra Puri, right? That is the pointer. This is Madhavendra Puri, right? Now, if we start speaking about him, we can speak about him for hours. He was a great devotee of the Lord, right? He used to live in Vrindavan. He used to just sit and chant, nothing else. If he never asked anyone for anything, no food, no water, nothing he asks for, right? He just sits and chants. And if someone notices him and brings him food, he will eat. Okay, else he doesn't go out looking for food. Now his understanding, his point of view was this. That if Krishna does not take care of me, I am not fit to live, right? That was the level of devotion, right? So one day, no one brings him food, right? And Krishna observes that he hasn't eaten for some time. So Krishna comes in the form of a small boy, and he gives him a little milk, right? So Madhavendra Puri drank the milk, and he lies down to doze a bit. And in the dream, Krishna comes and tells him, I came to you as this small boy, a small child, and you failed to recognize me, right? And then Krishna goes ahead and tells Madhavendra Puri in his dream about a deity which is kept in a bush to hide it from invaders from other countries, right? So Krishna tells Madhavendra Puri to take care of that deity. Okay. So when Madhavendra Puri wakes up, he is so surprised that that Krishna himself had come to give him milk, and he has not been able to recognize Krishna, right? So, but anyway, he tells the dream to other villages there, and he gathers a bunch of them, and they all go and try and find the deity where Krishna says that deity would be, and lo and behold, the deity is there. Okay. Now, question: does any of you know which deity I'm talking about? It's a very popular temple, very popular Krishna temple. Does anyone know which deity I've been talking about? To which deity is Madhavendra Puri associated with? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. No, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna Swayam, right? He's not Dwaraka. Okay, you're close by. HH is close by. No, not Nitai Gauranga. No, it's not Jagannath Puri either. Okay, I'll give you a clue, right? So this is Jagannath is in Orissa. It's on the east side. Okay, so this is on the west side, and it's not Dwaraka. Vittal. Okay, a little above. Srinath, yes, Pratima Mataji has got it right. Srinath ji, right? So this is Dwarnath, Nathdwara at Rajasthan, right? So this is that idol which was installed by Madhavendra Puri, right? Pratima Mataji, thank you, Hare Krishna. So the verse, why was I mentioning this story was about for the purpose of this these two words here, the great souls, right? So they are all under the protection of the divine nature. That is why when Madhavendra Puri was hungry, Krishna himself brought him food, right? So what is the symptom of a great soul? They are fully engaged in devotional service. And they know that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, right? So these are the two symptoms of a great soul. One, they are fully engaged in devotional service because the verse says so. So they are fully engaged in devotional service. It says so right here, correct? They are fully engaged in devotional service. So that is an indication of a great soul. And what is the next criteria? They know me, that is Krishna, as the supreme personality of Godhead. So for what are the symptoms of a great soul? These two things. Take Mother Yashoda for an example. How fortunate was she that Krishna had that she could she had Krishna with her in all his formative years, right? So many pastimes that Krishna had with her. But nowadays we look at the movie stars and high flyers and think, wow, how are they enjoying? But if you truly ask them, if they truly confide in you, then you will tell them that they will tell you that that there is unlimited problems, right? So true happiness comes from within, right? But then the problem is we search for happiness without on the outside, right? External sources. Why is true happiness within? Because Krishna is within us in the heart as the super soul. That's why we keep saying true happiness is within, right? Every school of thought says that. True happiness is within, but then the reason is because Krishna is within you in the heart area, in the heart region. Srimad Bhagavatam, yesterday I told you about, right? The super soul exists in the region of the heart. Okay, so 9.14.
Satatam kirtiyanto mang jatantascha drudha vrataha namasyantascha mang bhakta nityayukta upashate.
Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. Right? Just hold on for a moment. Just look at this amount of happiness in the faces of the devotees here, right? Just look at the happiness. This is one of the reasons why Krishna ISKCON spread like wildfire in the West. You'd find devotees on the street in Kirtan so happily chanting the Lord's name, right? And then people who pass by start to wonder what is bringing them so much joy, right? So they get curious. And we saw one of the ways in which people reach Krishna is their curiosity, right? So they try it, and then they also start having the experience, right? And then there is no looking back, right? So this is what this verse means. You have to always chant the glories of Krishna, right? Endeavoring with great determination and bowing down before Krishna, that these souls perpetually worship with devotion. And that's why this portion is called the Bhakti chapters, right? There's a lot of emphasis on devotion. The first 6 chapters were about karma, performance of duty, right? The next 6 chapters are about bhakti. That's why the emphasis here is on devotion. It's on devotional service, right? Okay. In the next few verses, Krishna would be explaining his relationship with us. So please pay a little attention. Important slokas coming up. 9.17.
Pita ahamasya jagato mata dhata pitamaha vedyam pavitram onkara rukshama yajurevacha.
So in this verse, Krishna is saying that I am the father of the universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. I am also the Rig, the Sama, and the Yajur Vedas. I don't have to explain this. It's as simple as it can be, right? It's very self-explanatory. Krishna says he's the father, the mother, the support, and also the grandsire, right? And he is also this. We have already seen that he is the syllable Om. We have already seen in chapter 5, right? And here he adds that he is also the Vedas, because Krishna is the one who's given us the Vedas. We saw that again in chapter 5, where we saw the the cycle of sacrifice, right? There it is. I mean, I showed you that that there is the Lord, and then he gives the Vedas. So Krishna says here that he is the Rig, Sama, and Yajur Vedas. Okay, let's proceed further. 9.18. I am the goal, the sustainer, the master, the witness, the abode, the refuge, and the most dear friend. I am the creation and the annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place, and the eternal seed. Okay, 9.19. Oh Arjuna, I control heat, the rain, and the drought. I am immortality, and I am also death personified. Both being and non-being are in me, right? So Krishna says in these two verses that he is basically everything, right? So the dualities I was talking about, that is reflected in 9.19, where Krishna says both being and non-being are in him, right? Like there's day and night, good and evil. Everything is there in Krishna. At the end of the day, if you look at it, he is, after all, the creator, right? Okay, so let's proceed to the next verse. This is, I put it here because it's a composer, right? Okay. Right, 9.20. Those who study the Vedas and drink the Soma juice, seeking the heavenly planets, worship me indirectly. They take birth on the planet of Indra, where they enjoy godly delights, right? Okay, but what do we do with all this information? I'll just read the next sloka also, because that is also related. 9.21. When they have thus enjoyed heavenly sense pleasure, they return to this mortal planet again. Thus, through the Vedic principles, they achieve only flickering happiness. These two are very important because they tell us the problem if we are only following Vedic principles. Now, it's good to follow Vedic principles. Have no doubt about that. But then it has its shortcoming, and that is that shortcoming is what is mentioned here, right? Krishna in these two verses is clearly discouraging the mere performance of rituals as stated in the Vedas, right? Which says that merely following the Vedas and performing the rituals to satisfy demigods is not adequate, right? All those that they achieve, all they would achieve is that they take you to higher planets, right? But will you be able to reach Krishna with that? The answer is resounding no. Okay, that this is the answer that echoes throughout the pages of Gita, right? There are two things that is required in order to reach Krishna. One is surrender, and second is devotional service, right? These are the only two ways by which you can reach Krishna. And Krishna says in 9.20, this verse, what happens to the person who studies the Vedas? They take birth in the planet of Indra, and what happens to them? They enjoy godly delights. Now, 9.21 is where Krishna says the shortcoming. He explains the shortcoming, right? When they have thus enjoyed heavenly sense pleasure. So there is a time limit for that. Okay. So you do good deeds, you go up to the better world, and you enjoy sense pleasures. And what happens once you exhaust that, you come back to this mortal planet, right? They return to this mortal planet again. So therefore, you don't transcend this jail, right? The 15 lokas, that is the jail. You remember I mentioned this earlier. That is the jail. You go up or you go down, right? But you have to transcend this millions of life births that we have day after, I mean, life after life. We are just traveling up and down. And unless you get this realization that in order to break out of this jail, you need to surrender to Krishna. That is the only way, apart from devotional service, right? So let's go on to the next slide. 9.22. Oh, very important sloka.
Ananyaha chintayanto mang ye janah paripasate tesang nityabhijuktanang yogokhyamang vahamyaham.
Can anyone tell me why this sloka is important? This last line should serve as a clue. An important institution in India has this as its motto. Any idea who? No? Okay, Alec Prabhu's got it right. Yes, Rao Prabhu also got it right. LIC. Yogakshemam Miham is LIC's motto, right? Okay, so what does this verse mean? Let's read the translation. But those who worship me with devotion.
LIC.
Thank you. But those who
LIC,
worship.
Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji. Those who worship me with devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and preserve what they have, right? So another verse of guarantee. So, but then what is it that we must have first, right? First, we must worship Krishna, and not just worship Krishna just like that, worship Krishna with devotion, right? And then what else? You should meditate on the transcendental form. Again, the emphasis is on transcendental form, right? Okay, let's go see what this verse actually literally means. So, Ananyas Chintayanto Mam, right? So, Ananya means without diversion, that is firm, determined, resolute determination, right? Then Ananya is, as I mentioned, without diversion. Now, Chintayanto Mam is concentrating on me. Mam is me, right? So, Chintayanto Mam is concentrating on me. That is concentrating on Krishna with devotion and without any diversion, right? And what happens if you think of Krishna in that way? Yogakshemam Vyahamyaham, right? He will preserve what we have and give what they lack, right? Now, it's important to note the form in which Krishna is worshipped, right? Krishna says here transcendental form. Krishna doesn't say, interestingly, unmanifested form, right? Or impersonal form, light or energy, right? What is said is transcendental form. Now, Krishna, when you say transcendental form, it refers to Krishna's two-handed form as he is in Goloka Vrindavan, or when he came to this planet in the Mahabharata, right? Those both are transcendental forms of Krishna. 9.23.
ये अपि अन्य देवाद्भुक्ता यजन्ते श्रद्धयान्वितः ते तोपि मामेव कौन्तेय यजन्त विधिपूर्वकम्.
Whatever a man may sacrifice to other gods, O son of Kunti, is really meant for me alone, but it is offered without true understanding. Again, we go back to 7th chapter. We saw about demigod worship, right? So again, echoes of that continue into chapter 9, right? Now, we have seen that it is Krishna who provides all the benefits, right? Also, enjoyer of all sacrifices. If you remember, we saw that again in chapter 7, where Krishna says he is the enjoyer of all the sacrifices. He is the only enjoyer of all the sacrifices. So Krishna says that when you're offering something to the demigods, you are doing it without understanding, right? Because what you offer to them is actually really meant for Krishna, but eventually it comes to Krishna also, right? Right. So I told this example quite a few times in this class itself, right? So you are in a jail, right? And this jail has a jailer, right? Now, all we are trying to do is we are worshipping the jailer so that we get an extra chapati or some extra dal, right? We are not trying to get out of this jail, right? It's like this. Let's say someone is in the prison, okay, and you have different classes of prison. Of course, you have prison which is more comfortable, which is less comfortable, so on and so forth, right? So when you're trying to please the jailer, all you can get is go from a C class jail to a A class jail. But can you get out of the jail, right? Now, who can let you out of the jail? Unless you get bail, you will not get out of the jail, right? So in order to get the bail, who is that person who grants you that bail? That bail, that order has to come from Krishna, right? So you should go and meet a lawyer. And who is this lawyer here equivalent to? The lawyer here is the chanting of the Maha Mantra, right? So that is an analogy which was very close to my heart. So I had to mention it. So jail, bail, and then we have the Maha Mantra all linked together. Okay. So Krishna has already said all this in chapter 7, right? Come to me, I will do all the work for you. And yet we refuse to go by this simple direction. And that too, in spite of knowing that the benefit is given only by Krishna, right? Just look at our audacity, right? I mean, generally, how is it? I mean, how is it worshipped, right? I'll give you 2 coconuts. You please give me this. What is this quid pro quo business we are having with God? Is it? Okay, then, and to imagine that even the demigods are interested in the 2 coconuts that we are offering them, right? What are they going to do with the coconuts? But anyway, that's how worship has become these days, right? So, but anyway, let's proceed further. 9.25.
Yanti deva prata devan पितृञ्जान्ति पितृव्रतः भूतानि यान्ति भूतेज्या यान्ति मस्जानित अपि मां.
Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. Those who worship ancestors go to the ancestors, and those who worship me will live with me. This is the second time that Krishna is saying this. Again, call back to chapter 7, right? I hope you all remember. In chapter 7, Krishna said, those who worship demigods go to the planets of the demigods, and those who surrender to Krishna ultimately reach his planet, right? Krishna is saying this so clearly here. Worship Krishna and you will reach Krishna. That is the ultimate goal of the soul after all, right? You have to find yourself based on whom you worship. Just realize that the Devatas cannot help you if you want spiritual bliss. They are here only to grant you material benefits, right? If you go to Shiva and ask to give me bhakti for Krishna, he will be the most happy, right? By your prayer. It will be granted immediately. Tatastu. Immediately it will be granted, okay? Because he is also a great devotee of Krishna, of course. He is the prime Vaishnava. I've mentioned this before. Vaishnava Nam Yata Shambho, right? So he is the prime Vaishnava, as they say. Okay, so that is 9.25. 9.26.
पत्रं पुष्पं फलं तोयं यो मे भक्त्वा प्रयच्छति तदहं भक्त्वा उपहृतम् अस्नामि प्रयतात्मनः.
If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. So what is it that you can ask? You can offer patram pushpam phalam toyam, right? How? With love and devotion. Right? Not without it. That is the most important. It's not what you offer, it's how you offer it, right? That's the most important. Without love and devotion, there is no use of offering, right? So you should strike a relationship with Krishna. It is a permanent relationship as opposed to what we are trying to do, striking up relationship with mere mortals in this world, right? And so this is also a clue about what should be in your diet, right? Patram pushpam phalam thoyam. Patram is leaves, which includes all vegetables. Pushpam is flowers, which also includes fruits. Phalam is fruits, of course. Pushpam is flowers, and thoyam is water, right? It's 9.26 and 9.27. O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering unto me. 9.28. In that way, you will be freed from bondage to work and its auspicious and inauspicious results. With your mind fixed on me in this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and come to me. Now, this is again call back from the Karma chapters, if you recall, right? We've dealt with this in great detail. Whatever you do it in the name of Krishna. You give it as an offering to Krishna, right? You sacrifice it for Krishna. You remember Krishna Arpanam, right? All this we saw in Karma Yoga chapter. Why is there so much repetition in Bhagavad Gita? Because he's already mentioned all this in chapters 1 to 6. Why is Krishna saying this all over again? Because they have to be understood clearly, and no one should take this excuse that I'm sorry, I didn't understand it. So Krishna is saying it in different ways, right? So that you understand, one understands what the message is, right? So Krishna says here very clearly, whatever you eat, whatever you do, whatever you offer, all your austerities should be performed unto me. And what happens if you do it like that? Only then would it be freed from bondage, right? And from the effects, from the auspicious and inauspicious results. That's good karma and bad karma, right? And what happens when you fix your mind on Krishna with this principle of renunciation? Renunciation is nothing but sacrifice, right? You will be liberated and you will come to me. So all this is what we saw in the karma chapters. Oh, this is an important verse. Very nice verse. 9.29.
समः अहं सर्वभूतेषु न मे द्वेषोऽस्ति न प्रियः ये भजन्त तु मां भक्त्वा मामिते तेषु चाप्यहम्. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is in me, and I am also a friend to him. Krishna, I mean, this is a clear verse, right? Krishna has no cause to envy anyone. He's not partial to anyone. He's equal to all. All except whom? those who render service unto Krishna with devotion. Right? It says so here. Whoever renders service unto me in devotion. Right? So to them, Krishna is not he is not equal. He treats them not equally. Right? Krishna does not does not deal with them equally. He treats them as a friend. Okay, short story here. There was a king who could not agree with this verse, right? So he believed that God should not and could not, in fact, be discriminatory, right? His reasoning was all souls are the same and have to be treated equally, right? In order to demonstrate the error in the king's ways, a devotee minister had it so arranged that in the presence of the king, when he was in his work, let's say, a citizen was thrown into the water, right? Now, when the king saw this, he asks his guard to find out to examine what the matter is about, right? So the guard goes, finds out, rescues the person, and the person is safe and sound, right? Now the next day, the minister asks the son of the king to jump in the water in the presence of the king, right? And without waiting for anyone, the king himself jumped. Okay, I'm back, right? So as I was saying, now when the king saw his son jump into the water, he didn't wait for anyone. He didn't tell anyone to see what was happening, right? So he just jumped immediately without waiting for anyone. So when the king rescues the son and he returns, the minister reminded the king that what you just did is what Krishna always does for his devotees, right? So therefore, Krishna does not deal with his devotees equally, right? They are his best friend, of course. What's that verse I was trying to recall? There's a very important verse on this, where Krishna says, "Parijanahi name bhakta pranasyati," right? So he tells Arjuna, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes, right? So that was just crossed my mind when we're dealing with this. Okay, so this is 9.30. Next verse.
अपि चेत् सुदुराचारः भजते माम् अनन्यभाक् साधुरेव समन्नेय सम्यग् व्यवस्थितः हि सः.
This is a verse which is very commonly misinterpreted, as a matter of fact. Even if one, let's read the translation, 9.30. Even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated. So what is Krishna saying here? Even if a person commits the most sinful act, he is engaged in, if he is engaged in the service of Krishna, it is forgiven. For example, Arjuna, right? One of the reasons Arjuna gives in chapter 1 is that it would be sinful for him to kill his kith and kin, right? That is the same reason that Krishna gives to Arjuna in the second chapter in reply to this ground of sin, right? This is the same answer that Krishna gives there, right? Nothing is considered to be a sin if it happens, whether by mistake or otherwise, in the performance of devotional service. Krishna will take care of it, right? But then we must keep this in mind. Krishna is in your heart. He knows your intention, okay? He is the Paramatma in your heart, right? Shirodakshya Vishnu. So the only thing he does in your heart is he observes you, right? He observes you and he is aware of your most intimate thoughts, right? And he sanctions your work, right? So when he is aware of every thought of yours, then it is not possible for you to cheat him, right? So you cannot think, I will do all the kind of sins in the world, but then I'll render devotional service and Krishna will take it. No, it's not like that. It's definitely not like that. You can't cheat Krishna, right? He is the biggest cheat. Krishna himself is the biggest. He's the cheater of all cheats, okay? So we've seen that so many times in the Mahabharata, right? That's another distinction between Krishna and Rama. I've answered this question also. What is the distinction between Krishna and Rama? Day before yesterday, I think the concluding portion, the answer was, I think Rao Prabhu was the one who asked the question, that difference between Krishna and Rama, right? But anyway, let's get back to the verse. I'm already beyond time. So as I was saying, you cannot cheat Krishna, right? Because he knows your every intention. He knows the thought process behind what you do, right? So you can't take it for granted that you can indulge yourself in all sorts of sinful activities and then render devotional service and everything will be washed out. No, sir, that doesn't happen. Karma does get attached. I'll give you an example of this, of this for this verse, right? For being engaged in devotional service. A mother, let's say, is watching her sister learning to walk, right? Now, when the child falls and when someone laughs at the child, will the mother keep quiet? She would immediately intervene, isn't it? And put that person to place, right? Similarly, when we take the initial steps in the spiritual route, if we slip, Krishna helps us, right? But you can't make it a habit, right? This is only for neophyte, new devotees, right? That privilege is available. You try to start the journey, but then you tend to slip. Of course, that happens, right? We're all human, right? Mere mortals at the end of the day. So you, when you slip, Krishna does not let you fall down. You may slip, but he will not let you fall down. He'll hold on to you, right? So that support you get in the initial times, but then when you are down further the spiritual path, then you can't slip as many times as you can when you are a neophyte, right? Then Krishna doesn't take to it lightly, because you've had now some amount of experience in the spiritual path, and you're supposed to know things, right? So then the altitude given by Krishna is very less. Okay, let's proceed further. We are almost there towards the end. 9.31.
क्षिप्रं भवति धर्मात्म्या स्वस्वच्छन्ति निगच्छति कौन्तेय प्रतिजानीहि न मे भक्तः प्रणश्यति.
And 9.32. Hare Krishna Mataji.
मां हि पार्थ व्यपाश्रित्य योतिषु पापयोनयः स्त्रियो वैश्य तथा शूद्रा ते अपि यन्ति परं गतिम्.
Thank you, Mataji. I believe you had to leave a little early, so that was I think the last verse which had Sanskrit in it. So if you have to leave, you can, please. Thank you so much for your devotional service.
It's okay. 10-15 minutes is there, no problem.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you then. Okay, so 9.31. This is the verse I was telling you, right? So parijjanihi name bhakta pranasyati. Right? So this is where Krishna is saying, declare boldly that my devotee never perishes. So this is the beauty of devotion, right? This is the beauty of devotion. Krishna says so very clearly here that his devotee never perishes, right? But then interestingly, why is he asking Arjuna to say this instead of Krishna himself saying it? Because we know how much what all Krishna has done in the Mahabharata, right? So going by what all he has done, it'll sound better. It'll sound more believable when Arjuna says it, right? So that's just a different way of looking at it. So the phrase translates like this: he quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. Right? Example on this picture is Hiranyakasipu. Right? When Hiranyakasipu was killed, the Lord's anger didn't subside. Right? He was roaring. No one would approach Narasimha in that anger when he was so much ferocious. Right? In that ferocious avatar that he was. So there was so much anger in that avatar, right? So the devatas, you see the devatas here hiding, right? Here behind the pillars and all that, right? So the devatas put up Prahalad to the business, right? So they tell Prahalad, please go and try and pacify him. He's very angry. We are all very scared of this. And look at the faith of Prahalad, right? So he's a small child. He's a kid, right? So what would he known? But yet he had no fear, right? So he walks right royally to Narasimha, who's like roaring, right? And then he offers prayers. There's nearly 3 chapters in the Srimad Bhagavatam of Prahalad's prayers to Narasimha. Okay, and beautiful prayers. The devotion that Prahalad expresses in Srimad Bhagavatam in those chapters, it's out of the world, very divine, right? So if we had classes in the old format, I would have gotten a little more into detail of all that, but then we need to keep time, right? So I'm cutting short here. So 9.32 was, O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas and Shudras, can attain the supreme destination. Whatever you do does not matter. Take shelter of Krishna. He accepts everyone. Krishna categorically mentions that for those who surrender onto Krishna, the societal grounds of discrimination no longer subsist, right? That's why all those classes are mentioned. So that is the only thing that is required of us to do, is to surrender to Krishna. It's very simple. That is in fact the message of Bhagavad Gita. Long and short of it, there is about 1,500 pages. Just the long and short of it is just one line: just surrender to Krishna. That's it. End of story. Okay. But then let's proceed further. 9.33.
किं पुनर्ब्रह्मणा पुण्या भक्ता राजर्षयस्तथा अनित्यामा सुखं लोकम् इमं प्राप्य भजस्व माम्. Hare
How
Krishna.
much more there is so of the righteous Brahmanas, the devotees, and the saintly king. Therefore, having come to this temporary miserable world, engage in loving service unto me. Right. So the wise is underlined in red because this is again what Krishna is saying. Engage in loving service unto me. That is the way out of this temporary and miserable world. Right. That was what I was looking for. Temporary and miserable world. So you have to engage in loving service to Krishna. It cannot get clearer than this, right? Direct command on the matter. Engage in loving service unto me, and you will get out of this temporary miserable world. Okay, this is the last verse for today. 9.34.
मन्मना भव मद्भक्तो मज्जाजी मां नमस्कुरु मामे वैश्यसि युक्तेव आत्मनं मत्परायणः.
Engage your mind always thinking. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Offer obeisance and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. So there are four things that are important in this verse. What are the four things? First, worship the Lord. 2, become the devotee of the Lord. 3, offer obeisance to the Lord. And 4, always think of the Lord, right? So these are the four things that is important if you have to reach Krishna, right? And how do you do this manmana? Madbhakto, right? So how do you do this manmana? Namasmaran, right? That is chanting. Chant as much as possible. That is the authorized way to worship in this Kali Yuga, right? And when you worship like that, you automatically think about Krishna. And when you automatically think about Krishna, you become his devotee. And the other 4 criteria are satisfied automatically, right? So with that, we conclude today's chapter. Quick recap. We saw what Bhagavad Aishwarya Jnana was. That is from chapters 1 to 10. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam. We saw why it was the most confidential knowledge, right? And what are the ways to approach Krishna and the sweetness of exclusive devotion. Okay, and we conclude this with Guru Pranam as usual. Om Angyanati Mirandasya Gyananjana Salakya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhuvayevacha Patitanam Pabanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. There is polls today. Okay, so let's conclude the polls and then we'll go to Ashtakam. I'll stop sharing first. Okay, that was a very important chapter. Please go through the purport of Srila Prabhupada in the book, because the book always does a much better job of what I do. I try to do at least. Okay, so let's go with the polls. Okay, so I'm going to remove co-host privileges, because otherwise you will not be able to vote to participate in the poll. So I'm just going to remove all your co-host privileges. Sulochana Mataji also I'm removing. I'll remake. I'll assign one more co-host, right? Okay. Let's run the poll. There are again 3 questions today with four options. I'm going to launch the poll. No, this is which chapter 9, right? Okay, got it. I'm launching the poll now. You will get the results on your screen. Okay, first question. How many levels of secret are there in the Bhagavad Gita? 3, 4, 5, 2. Okay. What do the great souls who are true devotees of the Lord do? They are fully engaged in devotional service. They perform pujas according to the Vedas perfectly. They meditate upon the light, focusing. They meditate upon the Lord, focusing upon a light. They make large donations of money to the temples. Okay. And then, who is the ultimate enjoyer of all sacrifices? Shiva, Krishna, Ganesh, Brahma. Okay, so all these are aspects which you would know easily, right? I mean, if you've been paying attention in class, then all these would have been so very easy, right? Simple questions actually. Right, let's see how much has been done so far. Okay, 48%, 49, 50%, within 50%. Okay, I'll wait till 70% at least. Let's see. So far, dominantly the class has paid attention, which is nice to know always. But I'm very happy about 2 things. I'll tell you what they are. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. 60% so far have participated. Another few more, perhaps another 30 seconds. I think we should be able to complete. Will discussion happen on polls? I didn't quite understand that question, Prabhu. Yes. I'll be explaining, of course. Yes, correct. I'll be explaining what's the basis of these questions, right? 66%. Just a little more. There are 111 of you all, and only 75 have voted. Okay, another 30 seconds and I'll wind up. It's 2 minutes already. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. 69. One more vote I'm waiting for. Okay, I guess we are all done because nobody else is voting. Okay, so I'm ending poll, but only 77 of 111 people have voted. That is not good. Okay, finally 78. There's one more person who just voted. So I'm ending poll now. Thank you for your votes, and I'll just share the screen in a moment, right? So these are the results. What is this? Yeah, just give me a moment. Why I'm not able to see the result? Okay, this is getting in the way. Okay, share results. Okay, can you all see the outcome, final outcome? Okay, so first question was, how many levels of secrets are there in the Bhagavad Gita? So there are varieties of answers. I was surprised about this. I thought I was quite categorical in explaining the kinds of secrets in the Bhagavad Gita. There are 3 kinds I had mentioned, if you would all recall: Guhyam, Guhyataram, and Guhya, right? So Guhyam is that first lesson in Bhagavad Gita that you are not the body but the soul, right? So that's the first level. Then Guhyataram is the second level of secret, that the soul is part and parcel of Krishna, right? And the third one is Guhya, that is to go back to Krishna through loving devotional service, right? So these 3 messages teach one about who one is, where that person is coming from, and 3, where that person has to go. So these are the 3 secrets of the Bhagavad Gita, right? That was something I thought was very clear, and we still have quite a few of them saying 3, 4, and 2. Okay, so that was the first question. Now the second question is why, and the reason why I said I was very happy about the next 2 questions is that you've all understood these 2 concepts. What do great souls who are true devotees of the Lord do? They are fully engaged in devotional service. That is perfect. 97% have got it right. I'm so happy because that is the message that I truly wanted to convey. I mean, the rest, see, there are first among equals, right? All the messages in the Bhagavad Gita are important, but then messages like these are more important than the ones which come a little behind. Okay, so the 97% have got it right, that they are fully engaged. Great souls are fully engaged in devotional service. Okay, there's one person who has said they perform Vedas, perform pujas according to Vedas perfectly. We saw what Krishna said today. Krishna says it's not adequate to perform your pujas according to the Vedas, because what they grant you is only up and down movement between the 15 worlds, right? So that doesn't serve the purpose of breaking out of the jail. I keep referring this jail, right? We have to break out of it, because that's the easiest analogy that I can think of, right? It's a confined place. You have to break out of it, right? But then Vedas don't give you that option to break out, right? And then the third one was surprising. They meditate upon the light, meditate upon the Lord, focusing upon a light. Someone is really into meditation. Okay. Okay, fine. 3 is, who is the ultimate enjoyer of all sacrifices? 100% of the classes got right. Phenomenal, right? This is another important message. So this is excellent. Okay, so I think this is the first time I'm seeing 100% in this answer. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, Ashtakam. Is anyone here for Ashtakam? I don't think so. Today, everyone has taken off. It's a working day. I don't know. Okay, anyway, so no Ashtakam today. If anyone is here for Ashtakam, please raise your hand. Okay, Krishnaveni Mataji is here, right? Hare Krishna Mataji. I'll just make you co-host. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare
I
Krishna.
promise, Prabhuji.
Yes,
I wouldn't
Mataji. I know. I mean, I expected my co-host to join me also. She didn't join. Neha
I
Mataji
know,
also
I
didn't
know,
join.
Prabhuji. And
was
I shared the link in your chat box also.
Okay, then I'll just open it, Mataji. I missed it because when class is going on, it's a little.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat.
Let me just get the link. 1 second. Yeah, got it. Oh, nice, Ashtakam. Nice sloka today. Good.
That's
Nice.
what is the whole and
Madhuram.
soul goal of the 9th chapter, Prabhuji. That's the reason I chose the
Yes, wonderful
Kevalashtakam.
choice. Excellent, Mataji. Yes, we are on.
Shall I start, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji, please.
So the very meaning of the Kevalashtakam is there's nothing more sweeter than Harinam. Harinamaiva Kevalam. Harinama, Harinama, Harinamaiva Kevalam. Kalau Nastyeva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva Gatiranyata. Hare Krishna. Madhuram Madhurebhyopi Mangalebhyopi Mangalam Pavanam Pavanebhyopi Hare Namaiva Kevalam Hare Namaiva Kevalam Abrahmastambhaparyantam Sarvam Maya Mayam Jagat Satyam Satyam Punaha Satyam Harir Namaiva Kevalam Harir Namaiva Kevalam Saguruhu Sapita Chapi Samata Bandhavopi Saha Sikshye Chet Sada Smartum Hare Namaiva Kevalam Hare Namaiva Kevalam Nishvase Nahi Vishvasa Kadarutho Bhavishyati Kirtaniya Mato Balyat Hare Namaiva Kevalam Hare Namaiva Kevalam Harihi Sada Vase Tatra Yatra Bhagavata Jana Gayanti Bhakti Bhavena Hare Namaiva Kevalam Hare Namaiva Kevalam Aho Dukkham Mahadukham Dukkha Dukkhaltaram Yata Kachardam Vishvitam Ratna Hare Namaiva Kevalam Hare Namaiva Kevalam Dhiyatam Dhiyatam
I think Mataji.
Namaiva Kevalam Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Please carry on. Please carry on.
Dhiyatam Dhiyatam Karno Niyatam Niyatam Vachaha Giyatam Giyatam Nityam Hare Namaiva Kevalam Hare Namaiva Kevalam Trunihikritya Jagat Sarvam राजते सकलोपरि चिदानन्दमयं शुद्धं हरिर्नामैव केवलम् हरिर्नामैव केवलम् हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. I'm sorry, Prabhuji, for the bad connection.
Absolutely no problem,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna. I'm so sorry.
It just makes us miss you immediately, right? When you're singing.
I'm so sorry.
When it disconnects, we just
Yeah.
immediately miss you. Like, what happened? What happened? Okay.
Truly,
Okay,
it
can you
is
just
such
explain this?
a
Explain this, Mataji.
beautiful
Yeah.
translation. Also,
Yes.
I'll take some time.
Please.
More sweet than all other sweet things, more auspicious than all other auspicious things. The greatest purifier of all purifying things. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. The entire universe, from exalted Brahma down to the lowly clump of grass, is a product of the illusory energy of the Supreme Lord. The only thing that is reality, again I say reality, is the holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. That person is a true preceptor or a true father, a true mother, and a true friend. Also, only if they teach one to always remember the holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. And you are doing that, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
There is no certainty when the last breath will come and put an abrupt halt to all one's material plans. Therefore, it is wise to always practice chanting from very childhood. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. Lord Hari eternally dwells in that place where truly exalted, spiritually advanced souls sing in the mood of pure devotion. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. There's a shloka, Prabhuji, wherein Lord Vishnu is telling Narada, Naham vasami vaikunte yoginam hridayena cha. Madbhaktaha yatra gayanti tatra tishtami Narada. Wherever my devotees sing, I am sitting there. So that I just wanted to mention that.
Yes, Mataji.
Aho, what is sorrow? What is great sorrow, more painful than any other misery in the world? Mistaking it as a mere piece of glass, the people have forgotten this jewel. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. It should be heard again and again with one's ears. It should be uttered over and over with one's voice. It should be perpetually sung and sung anew. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. You are mentioning Prahlada's prayers, Prabhuji. There's
Yes,
one
yes,
prayer in the Bhagavatam, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam,
Yes.
Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam Sakyam, Atmanivedanam.
Yes,
That
Mataji.
is
I
how
explained it in
this-
class also today. The 9 levels,
Oh,
the nine
nice,
nine
Prabhuji.
kinds
I
of
was not
devotion.
there.
Yeah.
Oh, Prabhuji.
With
All
examples.
these Ashtakams are based on the scriptures only, Prabhuji.
Yes,
Hare
yes,
Krishna.
absolutely. No doubt at all.
And the last one says, it makes the entire universe seem insignificant as a blade of grass. It reigns supreme over all in a splendorous manner. It is full of eternally conscious divine ecstasy. It is supremely pure. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Thank you, Mataji.
Krishna.
I should really appreciate you on the choice of the song today. It is very, very apt today. Nice,
Yes,
nice
Prabhuji,
choice, Mataji.
because
Hare Krishna.
that's what he said, Manmana Bhavantakta. Thank you
Yes,
so
Manmana
much for
Bhavantakta.
giving me Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Mataji. Thank you.
Auspiciousness to all the listeners and to you, Guruji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so let's have a discussion about the feedback we've received. Okay, before we get into question and answer session. Okay, I wanted to do this actually in the beginning, right? So let's just have a quick look at the feedback that has been shared by the devotees. Very interesting feedbacks you get. Let me just close all these. You can hear me, see me, all that is fine. Can Vijay Kumar Prabhu please confirm? Am I visible and audible? Vijay Kumar Prabhu? Because you're the only one who has the camera on. All good? Am I visible? Clear? Okay, thank you, Akshay. Thank you. Right. So we've had how many? 113, like say out of 400 devotees in the groups, we've had 113 responses. So that itself takes me off, puts me on the back foot, right? But anyway, nevertheless, we take it as they come. So no expectations, because that's what Krishna says, isn't it? You just have to do your duty, right? Okay, so out of this 113 responses, let's see how it's gone by. Okay, so the first question was, am I able to convey the fundamental ideas in a clear and a precise manner? And what is the verdict? Okay, so okay, I've got to mention this. I've fixed it's not an arbitrary number. Like 90% is what is like I consider to be a pass mark. Okay, so I'm not going to pay much attention if it is more than 90%. That is 9% out of 10. If they say it is fine, right? It's democratic, right? Long live democracy, after all. So 93% say that I'm able to clearly explain the ideas. When there's this one person who says, two people actually who say no. I've paid special attention to their comments, and yes, I will incorporate those improvements that you've mentioned. But see, sometimes what happens is it becomes incongruent. The suggestions made, if I implement them, then the other 93% will suffer. See, you see that, therefore it becomes a little difficult. And then there are, of course, 5 of them who need more time to decide. That's, of course, fair. All right. So is the adequate information given about the slokas discussed in class? So again, this is predominantly 96% say yes, which means we can go by what is the current, no changes in this. Is too much information given sometimes, which you feel is not to be relevant? So 92% again say it is fine. Okay, but then the 72, I went through their comments, and then yes, this eight people, I went through the comments. They do make some good points, so I have taken them into consideration. So henceforth, it will be on a little lesser side, though not too much less, but it will be on the slightly lesser side, right? Now, is the answer, is the language employed in class simple and easy to understand? 96% say it is easy to understand. Okay, so I don't think there'll be much problems there. If you want it to be a little slower, then I recommend you watch it on YouTube, and YouTube has this option of reducing the speed in which the video plays, right? So if you put it at 75%, it really it's very helpful if you're having problems with the language, or if you feel I'm taking it too fast. Okay, and that's my same reply for, is the class evenly paced, which is 97%, which is mostly yes. And how many people? 3 people say it's a little too fast. So I recommend that it'll be better if you look it up on YouTube, because there you have the option of slowing down the language and slowing down the video, right? Okay, and this is a major area of concern for me. Yes, this is something I'm truly guilty of. Okay, so this I'll really take efforts from from tomorrow's class. I'll ensure that the class does not go over 1 hour. Okay, 5 minutes grace time for me. Okay, so 1.05 hours. It will not exceed. Okay, so that's a promise that I make. Okay, maximum 1 hour I'll take. Maximum. That's like 74% say that it's not a problem, but then 25 is a substantial. That is like quarter of the class say if I exceed it causes inconvenience. Now that is not the idea, right? So I will make amends here, definitely, for sure. Okay, next question was, do the slides in the PowerPoint presentation contain adequate information? 92% say yes. And I have taken notice of the suggestions which came up as to what to do with the PowerPoint presentation, because 7% say that it is not adequate information. See what happens when you pack your slide with information, right? It becomes information overload. So your mind will be focused on reading what is there in the slide instead of hearing. And what does Krishna say? Takshrino, right? So hearing is more important, right, than seeing or assuming. We saw it in yesterday's chapter, right? So it is that information overload should not be there, and that is appreciated by the majority of the class. So there's not going to be much of changes here. Okay, and this came out as a very pleasant surprise. Do you feel that more Sanskrit slokas should be included in class? 62% say that is okay. I mean, it is fine as it is now. But then 37, which is more than 1/3 of the class, say that more Sanskrit slokas should be included. See what happens when you include Sanskrit slokas, it takes more time, right? And more time seems to be a problem, right? This is a basic course, right? There's only so much we can introduce within the time of 1 hour, right? So the focus here is on the quality, on introducing the concepts rather than the quantity. See, there are 700 slokas in the Bhagavad Gita right now, out of which there's quite a few important slokas, but then we still have to filter even from them in order to communicate it within 1 hour, right? So what is given importance is not the language, it is the concepts behind the language. And that is why in the beginners course, at least we try to keep Sanskrit at a minimum level, because otherwise devotees, they get bewildered, confused. the attention is drawn towards the language rather than the message. What is more important is the message, not the language, right? The language makes it beautiful, no doubt, but then it is the message, the concept that is important. And therefore, to include more Sanskrit shlokas would be difficult, because then we have a problem with the time, right? As I'm mentioning, if I increase the Sanskrit shlokas which are included in the class, then I'll have to increase the time also. They are directly proportional, but then that would be a problem. So this, I appreciate what is coming from the class, but it will be difficult to implement it. I hope the class appreciates my difficulty also, right? Okay, next question was, do you stay for the entire class till the end of the question and answer session, or do you leave class immediately? So 60% say that they stay entirely, but then again, 1/3 of the class leaves immediately after class, which is fair enough. I mean, it's a working day. Working days I can understand. 8 o'clock itself is late if you're going to get to work, right? So it is understandable, but what is taken in class is theory, right? And it is in the question and answer session that it is practically applied to. Now, there's only so many examples that I can give in class applying the general principles to day-to-day activities, right? Now, it is when devotees ask questions that those principles, the application of principles, become more clear. So it would be nice if this number goes up a little, but then of course it's up to the devotees, right? Do you find that the question and answer session is interesting? So 87%. I was hoping for at least a 95% in this, but then 87 is dropped down a bit. So I have to pay a little more attention to this. Of course, this 87% is of the 60% who stay for the entire session, right? So this is 87%. So I need to make it more interesting. Okay, noted. Deoli. Okay, this was another surprise. Does the answer given to a question resolve the question, or is it on an entirely different tangent? So 92% say yes, it answers the question, whereas we have about 7% which say that it is on an entirely different tangent. I try and avoid that. See what happens, there are so many thoughts that come into mind, right? When you're posed to the question, it just comes from out of nowhere, all these thoughts. So yeah, one has to streamline those thoughts which come in and choose the best out of those answers which will be very apt to that question. So sometimes that you tend to get lost in all those thoughts, and sometimes even communication would not be as succinct as it should have been, right? So my apologies to those who think that it is not entirely meeting the question, but I will make a conscious effort on this. But this is unacceptable. No, sir, this is something I truly cannot understand. Okay, the question is, have you started chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra as requested by me every day in class? Okay, now what is the reaction from the class? There are, okay, I'm going to ignore 48% of them, okay, because they are doing it perfectly fine. But then 12%, of course, they do more than one round, and then there's another 12.5%. So at least 25% of the class, that's 1/4 of the class, are already into the chanting, and 50% of the class, nearly 50% of the class, they do one round. But this 23% of people who are not who say they are waiting, not yet, as they are waiting for the right time. Now, this is something that I find very, very strange. I'll tell you why it is strange. Because point number one, tomorrow never comes. Okay, the moment to do anything good is now. Now, NOW, all in capitals, right? See, if you are thinking that let my problem cease and then I'll start chanting, that will never happen. If you're thinking let my problem cease and I'll start chanting, that's not going to happen. You should start chanting and then your problems will cease. At least you will be able to prevent it from affecting you, right? Your perspective, as I've mentioned before, changes to problems, right? So unless if your thought process for answering this is that I need to get my mind off stress before I start chanting, chanting is the one which actually de-stresses you, right? So it's the other way around. So please start chanting and do just this one round, okay? And it is 10 minutes I ask of your time, right? And it's not also for a long time. I'm just asking you to try for the next 9 days. We have another 9 days to go, right? So just try for the 9 days, and then you decide. You take a call. How would you like to proceed further, right? So my only request for this 23%, which is nearly 1/4 of the class, is don't wait for an appropriate time. There is never an appropriate time, right? So just start. 10 minutes is all it takes, okay? And there's no problem. See, these are devotional mantras, right? Bhakti mantras. So there's no regulation to chant. It doesn't have a regulation in time. You can chant anywhere, everywhere, right? And there is there's no set set rules that you have to do this before you start chanting. There's nothing of that sort. All that Krishna sees is the devotion when you chant, right? That is what is important. So please start chanting. It truly changes lives, believe me, right? Okay, so this is for something that I thought we should try, but then my co-host is not here. Purnima Mataji is here. The question was, do you feel that more questions can be taken in a session if the co-host, who are also senior devotees, were given additional role of seniors of answering questions? So 51%, which is half the class, says maybe, right? So I'm combining 51 and this 27%, which works out to nearly 75% of the class says maybe we can try it. We should try it once, and then we'll see if you're not comfortable. Then we can always revert back to this format that we're following. So once my co-host joins tomorrow, from tomorrow onwards, perhaps we can try that. Okay. I'll just explain what happens. So there's something called breakout rooms in Zoom. Okay. You'll probably have an option. Oh no, but you wouldn't have that option if you're not a host, right? So what happens in breakout rooms is, now we are how many? 68 people, right? So the 68 people can be divided into two. That's 34 people. 34 people for each room. Another extra room will be created, and I'll be in one place, and Purnima Mataji will be in the other place, and devotees would be divided into two groups, the 34, and you can choose who to whom you want to post to place the question, right? So you can choose to which room you want to go. Initially it will be automatically allotted, but if you want to go to the other room, that choice is entirely yours. Okay, so we can try that from tomorrow. Okay, that is one option that we can try, and that is another change that we'll be making from tomorrow. So the third one, this next question was, does singing of Ashtakam upon the conclusion of class adds value to the class? 90% says resounding yes. So there's nothing, no change there. If there's one thing you want to see changed in this class, what would it be? Okay, now there were several interesting answers, most of which related to time, right? There's time mentioned a lot of times, that I have to maintain time. So that is definitely, that's an undertaking that I've granted you today, right? So I'm going to maintain time. Class will not exceed more than 1 hour, or a grace period 5 minutes. So I'm not going to exceed 1.05 hours. Okay. And let's just quickly see all this. Most stories linked to Bhagavad Gita in today's life is required. I tried to do this as much as possible, right? But then that's why the question and answer sessions become important, because that is where you apply the principles to your regular life, right? Okay, this was an interesting one. Are Krishna and Rama the same? I've answered this specific question day before yesterday, right? I've answered that they are the same. They are Vishnu Tattvas, and but they are different in their moods, right? But then the answer is there. Just please watch the 7th chapter's ending, last about 10 minutes just before the end, right? And slokas could read a little slower. Mahamantra japa could be done in a more sing-song way. See, all this will have an impact on time, right? That is the problem. And the interactive quiz was a good move. Thank you. And to explain the Gita in simple senses with real-time examples, let the children do some prayer. A group of children. No, we have problems with YouTube because YouTube has a very strict policy with children being involved in YouTube. So that will be a little difficult for the channel to go on then. Right, more of Krishna stories. Yes, I want to include more of Krishna stories, but then I also need to issue convey the message, right? So nothing else should change. It's already interactive. More and more interactive will be better. Okay, no changes. Courses evenly placed. No changes. Okay, storytelling, analogy of current stereo. This has to be changed. Okay, so these are contradictory views that we get, but then stories make it more interesting, and story also makes the message easier to be understood, right? So that cannot be changed. Exceeding the time limit. Yes, that's true. No explanation. Oh my God, I thought I was over explaining things. Okay. Not exceeding more than 1 hour. Yes, that's true. Record sloka recitation session also. Okay, this I can take care. So what we can do is, for those who are interested in sloka recitation, Krishnaveni Mataji has a separate batch for this, right? So she will be. I can post the link in the group. I can do it tomorrow, right? Today there's no course, so I'll do it tomorrow. I'll post Krishnaveni Mataji's link, and she trains all her students phenomenally well. So she'll take care of you if you're interested in slokas. That is, please provide Bhagavad Gita sloka numbers in each chapter wise slokas provided to this is being supplied to all of you all, right? We do two ways. One, after the class, we give you the PDF which is taught in class, and we also give you the full entire chapter, right? So this is already being done. If you're part of the group who have left this feedback, if you're part of the group, this is already given to you, right? The explanation is excellent. I just asked for a request to include more slokas, though it consumes time. Yeah, I'm glad you understand it consumes time. And then when the representation is when you all join that it is 1 hour, I shouldn't be taking more than 1 hour, right? More slides, more pictures, more slokas, and more Sanskrit, but it also takes more time. You see, okay. Then early timings, narration is very good. Thank you. No, all is best. More stories from Mahabharata can be included. I would like to do it, but then stories are always, it'll take time. Explanation of Bhagavad Gita in today's era. Again, please attend the question and answer sessions. Questions are very fundamental and sometimes unable to find the right one. I really didn't quite understand that. What else is relevant? Okay, I'm really grateful for the compliments I've been receiving here. And is only for 1 hour, but then it goes. Yeah, this is true. This will be changed. No doubt about that. No need of reciting Sanskrit slokas again. But then you saw what the class says, right? The class wants more Sanskrit slokas. Question and answer session before Ashtakam would be great. Sometimes if that would be unfair because question and answer session is more personal, right? So that would be Ashtakam is always better to have immediately after class. You please have a look at from that way of time. I mean, once the class is over, it should be followed by Ashtakam. Better to make experienced Guruji to take this class. I I don't know what to say. Okay. Chanting audio can be more pleasant and pleasing to make me involved. Yeah, that's true. The class can say exceed by 15 minutes. No, I'll just take 5 more minutes henceforth. Okay. Core takeaway from each chapter. This was a good suggestion. Yes, this was a good suggestion. A takeaway from each chapter that I'll try to inculcate. Okay, so broadly everything else is fine. Chanting Maha Mantra at the start would be we actually if you tune in at 5 o'clock, the session actually starts at 5. I log in at 5. It starts with the Maha Mantra. So if you'd like to chant, a 10-minute video is played for the Maha Mantra. Balaji Prabhu is always there at 5. He's sometimes there even ahead of me. To give one advice that they can. Yes, this is that one takeaway. That's a good idea actually. This we'll try and implement. Okay, this 21-day session, it's going to be a little difficult because there are 18 days, right? There are 18 chapters, so 21 days. So what you can do is you can actually once this is over, please join the advanced session. That is like that's like you get a week for an entire chapter, so you'll get more time to reflect also. So please do join the advanced classes once this is over. Oh, and for this section, I'm so truly grateful for the kindness that has been showered upon me. I'm so very grateful for all the compliments. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's really humbling. Thank you very much for all the beautiful sentiments that you have expressed. Thank you so much. It's really very touching. Very, very touching. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. And this was the last question. You can leave a more elaborate feedback. So this was the feedback. And again, there were a lot of questions about, comments about keeping time, which of course I've undertaken that I will keep time. While note taking, I'm missing many points. So if you're missing many points, I advise you can always go back to YouTube, right? All these are posted on the group also. The video, as soon as it's recorded and it is transmitted live, it's automatically on YouTube immediately available. And I'll post the links also. Since usually Purnia Mataji posts the link immediately, right? Yeah, just as the class begins. Okay, so these are all fine. There were one or two that I wanted to focus upon. I've already touched upon this. Please clarify the essential difference between Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. This has already been taught in the 3rd chapter. That's why you have to attend to the question and answer sessions. This was a specific question and there was a specific answer to this. Okay. Correct way to address me, please call. Okay, Guruji and Acharyaji is definitely not for me because they are spiritual masters, right? ISKCON follows the protocol of addressing as Prabhu and Mataji, right? So Prabhu will be fine, more than fine. Okay. So interactive sessions will be even better. We're trying to do that. We involve the devotees more. Okay, quiz. Yes, quizzes. Please ask your questions in the the question and answer session. I'll respond to that. Okay. Again, there's a lot. Okay, this was something I found interesting. Being a Hindu, I don't like to be told to believe only the Supreme Godhead. Okay, I think this requires a 5 minute sometime into the question and answers. I'll just trespass 5 minutes into it and just explain why it is that Krishna is the Supreme Godhead, because I perhaps I haven't done the best of my job in explaining why Krishna is is the supreme Godhead. See, ISKCON does not say things just because they feel like saying, right? Whatever ISKCON says is from pramanas. That's proper proof from the Shastras. Now, if you dispute the Shastras, that's an entirely different thing. Then there's nothing can be done. Okay. But then if you believe in the Shastras, then it's just a matter of conveying it correctly. Perhaps I have floundered somewhere. I'll make amends. Within the end of this class, I'll give advance notice. We'll just discuss about why Krishna is the supreme Godhead. Okay, so this was one of the points that I wanted to point out. Okay, the explanations given in 1 hour for one chapter is crisp and clear to the point. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm just skimming through all of this. Yeah, that's true. 30 minutes is not sufficient. It requires 90 minutes, but then on morning 90 minutes would be difficult for the devotees also, right? That is the problem. More elaboration would require more time. Time is what is in short supply, right? Okay, what else is okay? This was another one. Oh, this was a very critical review. But see, I don't mind. I welcome actually critical reviews. But I felt this devotee was in a more advanced level, right? Now here in the beginners class, we are catering to beginners who are trying to understand the Bhagavad Gita for the first time. Now, apparently this devotee is an advanced devotee, right? So the best place for him would be in the advanced class. So just do make sure you join the advanced class, because there are much better teachers than me. Believe me, I'm nothing, right? I just convey what is conveyed to me. So that way he is correct. When he says my knowledge is too big, I completely agree. There's no doubt at all. But there are much better teachers than me in the advanced in the advanced courses. And Namanishta Prabhu is taking advanced level 3 and 4, right? So they are all, I mean, if you're looking for Sanskrit, their classes are the best to attend. So yes, I most humbly admit what you're saying. So I'm not joining issues there. And yes, thank you so much for the critical review. And yes, I do stumble many times, right? But then I pick up myself and then keep going, because the work has to be completed. Yes, you're right. I do not have vocabulary of Sanskrit words. That's why I'm helped out with Sanskrit with Sanskrit reciters, right? Because I personally feel with Srila Prabhupada's translation, there's too much importance which is given to Sanskrit. It is a beautiful language, make no mistake about it. But then the emphasis should be on the message, not on the language, right? The language helps in communicating it beautifully, no doubt about that. But it is the concept that is important. As a beginner, it is important to get hold of a firm grip of the concepts. Then once you get a firm grip on the concepts, then you can, of course, make it better, sound better, make it more beautiful with Sanskrit words. But then the basic requirement for this course would be for getting the concept straight. And that is where all my attention is diverted into, right? I purposefully do not want to incorporate too much Sanskrit, because for that reason, that it is the concepts that is important and not the language, right? That was something I wanted to address. And sometimes managing topic and going out is not so balanced. Probably yes, because I wander out to stories so many times, right? Okay, so yes. Oh, and this was really impressive. I learned Gita recitation from 9 years without taking his name. Even now, I don't start my surgeries. Oh, believe me, that is how everything has to be done. Beautiful. This is really impressive. Really impressive. Okay, this one starts with Manav Seva as Madhav Seva, which is not entirely correct. Devotional service is not Manav Seva. Okay. But the compliment is well taken, of course. Okay, so this Mataji, I think Hema Nair Mataji, please get in touch with me through the group. You can PM me on the group, and we will get this sorted out. Okay, you apparently have a problem with the certificate. I hope you are in class. Otherwise, I'll have to email you. Okay, so please get in touch, and we will get this sorted out. Continuous awareness process. Yes, thank you. So that's about it. So that was broadly the various feedback that we have been getting. I hope I have been able to do justice so far. But I'm one thing I have to mention is that I'm so very grateful for the compliments that I've received. I've really, with all humility, I say that there's really very pleasant to read all the encouragement, words of encouragement and kindness. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Oh, we've spent a lot of time, but we can take questions. We can take questions. Vani Mataji is ready with questions. Hare Krishna Mataji. I'll just unmute in a moment.
Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranams, excellent explanation. And your one of the compliments says that with a smile you are explaining well, and that brings positive charges, Prabhuji, that in the morning. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Vani
I have
Mataji.
a question. I have a question on the sloka 32. It really bothered me when I read by myself, and even when I'm reading with you also.
Okay, so let me just get this sloka out. 9, no? Chapter 9, 32. What is 9,
32.
32? Do you have the page number? You have the book, right? Page number 32.
But I have the page number, but mine is old version, 497.
It tallies. Okay. 4. Okay. Okay. Doesn't tally. Okay. Carry on, Mataji. Oh, yes. 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 Okay. I knew there will be a question out of this. This is a good. I mean, yeah. This sloka always has a problem. Okay. So okay. Let me just.
No,
let me
not
just-
this sloka, not just this sloka, because even of the Varna division, he has. Is it approved by ISKCON or Krishna? Is it not? No, let me focus on this sloka.
No, but
So-
let's complete your question. No, I'll answer both.
No, because I'll be taking too much of your time. But I am
Okay.
really.
No, but they are both pertinent questions. Okay, so let's just let me get this sloka out. That's 32, right?
Yeah.
32. Okay. It was taken in class also today.
Yes.
Yes, this is the one, right?
Yeah.
Let me just share the screen. Just give me one moment. Okay, got it. Okay, so this is what Vani Mataji is referring to. Yes, Mataji. Now tell me, what is it you want to do?
Because this one, because of lower birth, women being referred to the lower birth. Of course, being a woman, I spoke about women, but of course, other caste and everything. So, in the world of Krishna, is it the discrimination?
Oh no, Mataji, there's absolutely no discrimination, right?
Then,
let's-
then if
One
it is
second, let me change
included
it.
in Bhagavad Gita, is it not stamping inequality in the creation?
Okay,
Is it not
let's take it one by one. Okay, so what is Krishna saying here? What is Krishna saying here? What's your understanding of this sloka?
Thou be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, Sudras can attain the supreme destination.
Yes.
The word
And what did I
is-
say in class? I said that the societal grounds of discrimination no longer subsist, right? These are all from the point of view of the society.
Society of that time.
Yes.
That time.
Of the time when Bhagavad Gita was actually being spoken, even then it had started to set in, you see?
So this particular verse you can say that it belonged to the setting or the milieu of the times when the book was written, when Bhagavad Gita was written. That's what
To an
you are
extent, to an extent, yes.
But my question is that when it is included in Bhagavad Gita, so when people read it, so what kind of impression does it cause? That means that it's like giving a stamp, authoritative stamp on it. Does it
We saw
not?
chapter 5, no? Where does
Even
this
it
Chaturvarnyam?
talks about. It
we
talks about.
saw that, right? What does he base it upon? He bases it upon two things, right? Guna and karma.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a beautiful way of saying it's guna and karma with regard to the creation of classes and all that stuff. But even that also, when it is included in Bhagavad Gita, is it not creating an authoritative stamp? Because Bhagavad Gita is considered to be a sacred, an epic, a sacred guide to all Hindus.
Okay,
So,
see, apparently your emphasis seems to be on this point that Krishna ought not to have used this phrase here in the Bhagavad Gita. But then you are missing out the point of the, see, that's not the point of the verse. The point of the verse is that he is common for everyone. Krishna is available for everyone, right? There's no discrimination. That is the message. Why is this requirement of focusing on the negative always there? Humanity has this problem of focusing on the negative. I don't know. The message is not on the negative. Why don't you take it on the positive side? Krishna is saying he is available for everyone without discrimination, isn't it? The societal grounds of discrimination, that's the phrase I used, no longer subsist, right? So for Krishna, and he makes it clear also further down the chapter, towards the ending, Krishna says that I do not discriminate, correct? He says he is neutral, but then he is best friends with his own devotees, right? Somehow we seem to miss the positive aspects of it. The negatives, oh yes, we'll pick out that. Even if there's 700 verses, we'll pick out that
Yes,
negative one and then pick and prod it.
Yes, because I got really stunned and surprised when I read by myself. Even when I'm not attending these classes, I read this. I could not continue reading after this. Oh my goodness, what is this? I did not expect this in Bhagavad Gita. That's what I thought. But then I decided, whatever it is, as you said, Prabhuji, that why should we focus on the negative, one simple negative?
It's not a
And-
negative, Mataji. See, when I said negative, it's just our perception that it is negative, right? It's how we perceive it. Apparently, you're not happy with my answer. I'm sorry.
The word lawyer is lawyer. The word lawyer has
Who is
its meaning.
saying this? Who is saying this? Krishna, right? Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita that he knows what has happened, what is happening, and what will happen, right? It could have been. I'm going a little beyond what I'm assuming, right? Perhaps Krishna would have known what would happen to his Chaturvarnam, and it is in anticipation of that. Okay, would you agree with me on this? The Chaturvarnam, as it was devised by Krishna, is not in existence anymore. Would you agree with me on that?
Yeah, but it exists in a
If you agree
perverted
with
way.
me on that, I mean, whose fault is it that it has deteriorated?
I'm not going into that, but it
No, you
exists
have to
in a
go into it. You
perverted
can't say I don't want to go there. See, if I have to answer your question, I have to ask you questions. I need to understand your point of view, right? So
Yeah, it
so please
exists-
don't take it that when I'm asking questions, don't think that I'm too aggressive. Okay,
I
I'm just
don't
trying
think
to understand your point of view.
it exists in a perverted way in India, and to our Hindu society, it's a bane to our Hindu society. It's a bane.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
It's a
Right.
curse.
Why is it a bane? It is a bane because what was initially intended to be guna and karma has been substituted with janma, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
That is
I
the
agree.
problem, right?
I
Now, what does
agree.
Krishna say here? What has happened now? Subsequently, as time passes by, we have corrupted that society, right? Now, Krishna
Yes.
knows what is going to happen, right? So, even in this society, Krishna says, even if you are in that class, which the society perceives as the lowest class of all, which is today's reality. You take I don't want to take any states names, but you take the more backward states in India. That we still hear discrimination based on caste and creed, right?
That's true.
So Krishna knows that this is the problem. This would happen, and so he's gone that one extra step to make sure to convey the message that even if the society would perceive you to be in that lowly place, that I don't see any discrimination there. Krishna says I don't discriminate. So that is the message that is conveyed to the people of the lower strata to assure them that God is still there, available for them. Right?
Yeah, I understand, but it's not anybody's fault. It's in the Bhagavad Gita. I could not understand. I could not wrap my head around the concept, because if it is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, and people, those who support the caste system, varna system, are the lower role, unequal status for women. Hey, it's mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. It becomes like an
That is
authority.
so wrong. That is so
It
wrong.
becomes
Okay, I'll just show you immediately.
Like
I'll just show you
authority.
No,
It
no.
becomes like an authority for them. That's what
If
I
you're
want
going to go by what is mentioned here in about women, please also see 10.34. Let's take out 10.34. Come on. Let's take out 10.34. Chapter 10, verse 34. No, you can't just rely upon one verse and then conclude, oh my God, this is so against.
I
it." Let's just see 10.
got stuck, Prabhuji. I just
naturally,
got stuck and
See,
I could not
that's the
see.
problem when we read it superficially. I mean, of course, this is just the beginner's class. But
Of
then,
course, superficially. Of course,
correct.
superficially.
See,
I'm not going
So,
deep because I
therefore,
don't.
that's why Vedanta Sutra is so important. You know, it starts with therefore. Therefore, inquire about Lord. No, that's why Vedanta Sutra starts with therefore.
I'm on 1034.
Okay, please read.
I am all devouring death. Are you talking about that?
Yes.
I am all devouring death, and I am the generating principle of all that is yet to be. Among women, I am fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfastness, and patience.
I rest my case. Correct. So let's not go. See, you have to take it in this context. You have to take it in this context, right?
Yeah, but I know, but I know you are right, but there is no point. It's what it is. It's mentioned in
It
Bhagavad
is
Gita.
mentioned there. It is mentioned there, but then there's a
It is
purpose behind why
mentioned.
it's mentioned. We see,
It is
to
mentioned.
my wisdom, I have put it in a particular way. But of course, yeah, please keep inquiring, because I'm sure you'll get. The beauty of this is, the more deeper you dig, the more nuggets of gold that you get. Right? That's the beauty of the Bhagavad Gita. So
Yes.
right now we are on the superficial level, but keep digging, keep inquiring. That's why that I mentioned about Vedanta Sutra. Right? Therefore, inquire about the divine. Atatat Brahmo Jignasa. Right? So please keep inquiring, keep seeking. That is what is important, right? But one thing you should keep in mind, firmly placed, is that Krishna is the supreme God. That is always there. If don't divert from that, because once you start diverting from that, then you lose the sight of the goal. That is a problem. That becomes a problem.
And anyhow, the problem, as you said, it's the setting of the book, or the setting, or the time in which Vyasa wrote this. Let us let us settle that. Okay, that's what it is. That's what
But
it
then
is.
we can't deny this fact that it is as applicable then as it is applicable today, right?
The Bhagavad Gita is such a practical book.
Yes.
I fall in love with Bhagavad Gita.
It's perhaps the best self-help book.
And it goes beyond religion.
Yeah.
That's what I want to tell
Yes.
even everybody. It's
Correct.
not
Understood.
about whether you mention Krishna, whether you take away the factor of Krishna from it. It is such a practical book. It goes beyond religion, and
Agreed.
it stands the test of the time.
Correct.
I agree on all those things.
Yes. Excellent.
Yeah, thank you so
Srivatsan
much.
Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Hare
Mataji. Nice. Always nice discussing these things with you. These are things that one has to discuss. That this is the practical application of things. If we just mention it in the class and then leave it at that, unless this sort of inputs come, that evolution of mind doesn't happen. So thank you very much for initiating, and keep doing this, please. Right. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Srivatsan Prabhu, yes. I'm sorry you have raised your hand and then now you've slowed down. Would you like to say something?
Yes, Prabhuji. No, Prabhuji. The continuation of what was discussed. See,
Okay.
the only thing during the course of the sessions which we are doing for the past 9 days. See, one thing which we should understand is that we are not. See, yes, everyone. Let it be women or let it be men, let it be somebody else, whoever might be the case. Everybody is lower than Krishna. That is the only thing which we need to understand about that. And we need to seek his knowledge. And one thing which I always think is that, we always try to question it rather than completely understanding the concepts. See, if we completely understand the concepts, then we would be completely, coming out of these particular questions. Thank you, Mataji. But only thing is that, it's never about. See, yes, that is why we are all born in this world, because we are lower than that particular Supreme Lord. Because
So,
we are.
I understand broadly what you're saying is eventually we'll have to surrender to Krishna, right? Correct?
Yes. So
Yes,
surrender to
Hare
Krishna without any
without
doubts,
applying your
without any
mind.
doubt.
Blind faith. Correct?
Blind faith. See, surrender to him without no condition, unconditional surrender. That is
I'm sorry,
only
not blind
thing
faith.
which
Unconditional was the word I was looking for. Right.
yeah, unconditional surrender, which we need to see. Whatever you take it. Yeah, he is the supreme. Yes, he is the supreme. Even if he says, I am lower. Yes, I am lower. I am lower. I am lower at all. Because see, I'm not able to reach him because I'm still questioning him. That is where the problem lies. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Just a small a different point of view, Prabhu. You take Bhagavad Gita itself, isn't it? There's so many questions. Arjuna asks question after question after question, right?
Yes,
but then there's
us.
one important element there. Arjuna is a devotee of Krishna, right? That is
Yes.
that's the golden thread that runs throughout Bhagavad Gita, that you have to surrender to Krishna. But you will definitely have doubts. See, questions are not forbidden. In fact, Eastern religions and Western religions, there's one big difference that I noticed. They have something called commandments, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have commandments. Here, it's not a commandment. Here, it's a process. It's a dialogue. Usually, you take any Upanishad. No, it's usually a dialogue. Like Kalishantara Upanishad is a dialogue between Brahma and Narada. Bhagavad Gita Upanishad is between Krishna and Arjuna. it's this, therefore this land, this entire horizon has been a land of being seekers, right? They keep seeking, and that's what makes it so amazingly beautiful, right? It's not a commandment, thou shall do this, thou shall not do that. It's not like that, right?
Exactly.
Here it's like questions, question upon question upon how many. He starts off with 5 questions. I mean, he gives 5 reasons and then asks Krishna to explain. Krishna explains. Then from those explanations, he starts asking so many questions. And imagine, I mean, yeah, once you go to the Jnana chapters, there are so many questions he keeps asking Krishna. Imagine that, asking questions directly to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But then Krishna knew, Krishna was answering all these questions because of that one fact that Arjuna was his own devotee, right? That is what was important. The
And,
surrender to
Prabhu,
Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji. And one thing which is very, very, see, that is where, the one which he says that, the pearls that is attached to the thread.
Yes.
See, if we see these pearls individually, definitely we will not be able to understand the concept. But if we see these pearls along with the thread, which is complete, then I think, we might be coming out of these things.
Then only it becomes a necklace itself. Otherwise, it's just a pearl, right? It becomes a pearl necklace only when you see it together, right? Thank you. Nice point of view. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. There's a long series of numbers, and then VSVE I'm able to see. Venkat, okay. Hare Krishna. Venkat Prabhu.
Hello, Prabhuji. I believe it could be a typo error. I never believe Krishna would have told like that. Always in scriptures, lower birth means ant, worm, lower than the human being. So maybe in that scenario, women are not given equal opportunity like men for all the work or reading or whatever in those period. Maybe the second point. Otherwise, if woman is considered as a lower birth, woman never been gifted to carry a soul.
No, I answered that. No, Krishna does not think woman is lower birth. So you have to understand this in concept. Krishna is talking about the future here, right? Right? See, I showed the other verse, no, just now in chapter 10. What does he say about women there? Because chapter 10 is what we are going to deal with tomorrow. And by the way, tomorrow's chapter is about the opulences of the Lord, right? So Krishna says, the underlying point in the chapter is that he is the best of all the things that we are able to perceive of, right? So while speaking about that, he defines the characteristics of a woman. And Mataji just read out that portion that I requested her to read. Krishna says he glorifies women, right? What more is required? So please see it in the context. The problem is we are taking a verse out and then examining it. That shouldn't be how you read the text. You have to see it in the overall context, right? And in the overall context, Prabhuji also wants to say something. Definitely, I'll just a moment. Let me just finish. So if you see it in the overall concept, Mataji, there's no typo of that sort. It is Krishna cannot make a typo. Ved Vyas cannot make a typo. Okay, these are people beyond with amazing abilities. Ved Vyas, in fact, is considered to be a partial avatar of Krishna. So no error can be attributed to that. See, and the problem is if you start attributing errors, then people will start saying, oh, if there's an error there, then there can be an error somewhere else. So that is not how you read the scriptures, right? You have to take it as it is. You cannot change a single word in it, because each word is pregnant with meaning, right? But then the problem is we have to see it in the context and not superficially. See, now this is just the beginner's class, right? Even I am a beginner, right? I've just joined a little earlier than you, that's all. But then even I am a beginner, right? So what we are seeing it is superficially. But then as you go deeper into it, you get so many, as I was mentioning to Vani Mataji, you get so much information and knowledge about what Krishna is actually conveying there, right? Each verse, that's the problem. See, that's why advanced classes, please do continue seeking in the advanced classes, because advanced classes, we have an entire week to think about, reflect about the class. And then in the next class, we have a very lengthy question and answer session. And advanced classes are just 2 in a week, right? So Saturday and Sundays. So we take two chapters. So you get a lot of time to think about the verse. And then we have another level above it, which is topic wise. So we take a topic, and then in that topic, there's a debate. What does Krishna mean? Why is this word used? Why isn't it that the other word is used? So there's a lot of discussion happens. This is the beginner's course. There's only so much you can do in a beginner's course, correct? So therefore it is that our understanding, including mine, with all humility, I must agree. I must accept that it is not the perfect one. So I'm also still reading. I'm also still getting acquainted with these principles, right? So please let us just stay on this path. The staying on this path is what is important. Yes, Prabhu. Srivatsan Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, sorry to come back again.
No,
See,
you are always welcome.
to say that, women are more higher, because if you could see in our religion, the Andal who has told Tirupavai. Tirupavai is supposed to be the
Epitome. Yeah. Highest.
saram of all the
Yeah,
Vedas.
correct.
Okay. And she is the only person who has attained. See, that is where we have kept the women in our religion. That's one thing. And you also see that, in the Ramanuja, see, there's a Purushagara Bhutam, in the sense, see, the Lord himself is like a father. He always says, if you have not followed the rule, you are going to be punished. But see, only what we have been told is, please approach the mother. See, the goddess, the Lakshmi, who can always be the Purushagara Bhutam, who can always be the, she can, she can always recommend that, after all, he is our son. Please, forgive him
She's
all.
kinder. She's easily pleased.
This is where, see, these are things which we have never given ear to. See, these are all things which we need to celebrate. See, even he himself says that, if you reach mother, definitely you cannot be denied by him. You cannot be denied by him. See, because if you are getting the karuna of mother, then definitely he cannot deny of any sort. Am I right, Prabhuji?
Agreed, Prabhu. Agreed. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare
Any other questions we had? There are a lot of questions in the chat, but then we are out of time, as it usually is. Time is our greatest enemy, right? Okay, so we'll conclude the class here today. The questions which are asked in the chat, please do repeat it tomorrow, and I'll make sure that it is addressed. Okay, Hare Krishna. And again, thank you for those wonderful compliments in the feedback. Hare Krishna. I'm really humbled by it. Thank you so much. So let's I'll just unmute you all, and we can conclude in our usual way. Okay, so I've you can all unmute yourselves. Please unmute. Okay, only 2 people have unmuted. We have 37 of them. Why don't you please unmute? We'll just say Jai, just one word. Can you please unmute, devotees? Okay, Bhagavad Gita ki Jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you again for joining. Tomorrow is the opulences chapter, right? The opulences of Krishna, the grandeur of Krishna, right? So it's a short chapter, but then it's very nice reading it. It brings out the bliss of the greatness of Krishna, right? So let's meet again tomorrow to discuss that chapter. Hare Krishna. I'll end the session.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for joining.